Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Dan's Veggie Patch. This time around we're going to see what effect, if any, the frost had on the garden. We'll see if maybe I'm jumping the gun again, and as an extra added attraction, I get disowned and maybe drawn and quartered. So stick around. Alright, welcome back to the Veggie Patch, and we're going to take a look underneath the fleece just to see what, if anything, the frost did the last 2 nights. Here's the sweet potatoes. They look a little more the worse for wear, but that could be wind as much as the cold. I think they're going to be just fine. Here's the black-eyed peas. I think I was probably 2/3 or 3/4 killed by the frost. The other quarter hung on. I have enough peas to reseed this, and they didn't get too far anyway, so I'll go ahead and reseed. Now, I expected the cabbage to be just fine. I was just protecting it from the wind the other day. And of course, yes, the cabbage is just fine. The only thing we have here is an excess of wood chips that got underneath the fleece. Same thing with the broccoli. I expected it to be just fine, and it is. Okay, as for the yellow squash and the black squash here, kind of a mixed bag. Definitely some damage. So I'll keep an eye on these. Okay, this one plant here might not survive. We'll see. It may. I will keep an eye on them. They got some growth in the center of them, so it may just grow out of it, but definitely damaged due to the weather. The cucumbers definitely, and the sound dropped, but the cucumbers did take a pretty decent hit. Several of them didn't make it, so I went ahead and re-sowed seeds at those locations. Seems a bit unusual looking at it at first glance. It looks like I've lost the 2 spaghetti squashes that were in the center of the fleece. The ones on the ends came through it okay. Let's look at the beans. Okay. Those will still work. A little damage there. Let's pull this up a little more here. Some damage to the leaves. That one plant may not be going there on the right. And probably that one on the left is not going to survive either. So some damage, but fortunately with all these, it's easy to seed, and they come up so quick from seed that I'm not going to lose a lot of time even doing that. So overall, could have been worse. Now, my wonderful mother-in-law, to whom I lovingly refer as that crusty mountain broad with a thumping gizzard, says that we've just gone through what's called dogwood winter, and in about 2 weeks we're going to have what's called blackberry winter. So there may be another little bit of cold weather to go before we get to the end of the cold for this season and we can get into the real growing. Now, I've decided to be optimistic and forget about any notion of blackberry winter. So let's put away the fleeces and get going on planting the tomatoes and getting some other sowing done. Now, I'm going to start my planting with the tomatoes. There are 6 varieties I'll be planting, including a variety of grape and a variety of cherry tomatoes. But first, what I needed to do was rake out the beds in order to break up the surface a bit and to knock apart the big clumps. So now that the bed's prepared, it's time to make up the planting holes, measure them out and all that. Then I'll plant the plants. The tomatoes I'm planting right now are San Marzanos. and I think I put in 6 or 8 of those. Uh, at this point, time was of the essence since it was starting to rain, and I wanted to get everything possible into the ground so it would all get rained in pretty well. So what I didn't do was that vertical growing step of tying the end on a string and putting the knot in each hole first before I planted the tomato. I took care of all that later. I needed to sow what seeds I had left, so I've gotten some of the radishes out and actually sowed right back in place from where they were. Keep an eye on those. I have sown onions here, past the ones I'd had started before. And down here at the leeks, sowed a bunch of leeks here too. So they'll be coming up later this year. Now I'm going to hop over here. This 10-foot section, I sowed the parsnips. And I could have done this earlier, but I just didn't get the time to do it. So I've got 140 or some, I hope, parsnips if they all come up. And they are delicious. But we'll see if 140 is a bunch. Hopefully I'll sell some. Now, I've also sown some more cowpeas, black-eyed peas, because I did lose a bunch at the frost last week. So I've sown those. And I came over and sowed some cauliflower seeds just to get some more coming up, because I don't have enough, obviously, cauliflower plants here. So hopefully I'll get a bunch and I can do that. And the last thing I sowed was in this little 8-foot section right here, and that was Baba Yaga. No, not Baba Yaga, rutabaga. Yeah, rutabaga is a root vegetable like parsnips, turnips, and I like them all, except for one thing. Let me show you that. These are parsnip seeds. Real easy to work with, nice light color so you know exactly where you're planting. Easy to work with. These are rutabaga seeds. Little bitty black seeds that I can't plant unless I have my cheater glasses on, and it's pretty much impossible to see where they go in the soil and very tough to pick up if I'm hand sowing, which I was. A pain in the neck. Cauliflower seeds are almost as bad. Kohlrabi seeds were as bad as the rutabagas. So you got to really, really like rutabagas to plant a bunch of them, apparently. And so a week later, after planting, let's take a look and see what we got here. These are the German Johnsons. And you can see in between the tomatoes, I had planted marigolds as companion plantings to keep the insects away, or to help anyway. I've got a variety called Mr. Stripey down here, which are delicious, along with the German Johnsons. And on the other side, we'll check out the others. Okay, now for the Italian restaurant, the Italian dishes and sauces and such, I've got some San Marzanos here, and they're all looking real good. And we'll come down, and here's the Romas. They're all looking in good shape, starting to go just a little bit. Marigolds are looking pretty good too. Let's go check out the frost damage. Okay, yellow squash is pushing, coming through nicely. It's really moving. Down here to the black magic squash, and they're pushing through. Growing up, this one I'm still keeping an eye on. We'll see if it does anything. There may be something coming from the center, I don't know. The rest of them are looking good. Matter of fact, there's a couple of nasturtiums that are coming up too. Won't be too long before I'll have to start twirling these around the strings. And there's another nasturtium there. The cucumbers did get hit a little worse. There's one that's kind of sort of hanging on. I may just plant another seed right there, or sow another seed there. Some nasturtiums coming up here. I did sow a couple in a couple of spots. There's one. And the next spot over, I put a couple in there. So they're all coming up nicely. There's another one over there that ended up going. It didn't make it. And some nasturtiums. And I sowed another one over here with that one that died. So it'll be okay. Let's check the beans. Okay, green beans. This one at the end that I didn't think was going to make it isn't going to make it from the looks of it. So I previously sowed a couple more in there. You can see they're coming up nicely. So they're going to be okay. The rest of them I think are going to hang there. Although this one over here is not looking the best in the world. This one's got some good growth coming up on it. There. And going down the line. Some damage. I may do something with this one. I may plant something else or sow another seed right there. Now, down here to the spaghetti squash. If you remember from last time, the ones on the ends did fine. The ones in the middle, I'd given up hope. Here's the ones on the ends. They're still looking good. I really am amazed by these two spaghetti squash in the middle. I'd given them no chance at all, but boy, they're really fighting back. So they're fighting. They're not giving up, and I think I'm going to leave them there, even though I planted, or I sowed another seed on that side. I may just move it and replant it when it gets a little bigger. Put it in here and let it grow too. So that's really the extent of the frost damage. Nothing from which I couldn't recover. Overall, lettuces are looking pretty healthy. Already had a couple of picks. Just to eat in the house for salads for dinner. Some of the smaller plants are getting a little dry. I got to be careful of those. So I keep an eye on those until they get a little bit bigger. Otherwise, doing pretty good. It's sunny, about 70 degrees, and for a change, 0 wind. This last week has been horrible as far as wind goes. So I thought I'd get out and flip this other pile of compost. Just saw a mouse over there. Okay, 15 minutes, 3 mice, and 1 bashed thumbnail later. I've got this bay 6 all cleaned out, and bay 7 filled up. Actually, all the way through, the compost looked pretty decent. There were really matted, wet clumps of grass that had not composted yet down in the corners, and that's just a reflection on having the tarp over it most of the winter and the water still being able to get in the corners. But once I flipped it around and try and break up everything, it looked much better. As you can tell, it looks pretty good on top. Now I'll leave this for a while, a month or so, see what happens. I'm actually gonna keep the thermometer in here. You can't see that here. Let me angle it so we can see a little better. just to see if there's any more activity in there. Okay, we're looking at about 70 right now on the old thermometer. We'll leave this in here for another few weeks just to see if there is any more activity and a little more heat going in on there. I kind of doubt it, but we'll see. That's going to do it from the windy veggie patch for this time. By the way, did you catch the continuity error? If you did, let me know in the comments. If you didn't see it, go back and take a look, see if you can find it. So until next time, when I'm liable to say, bang soon. See you next time. These are parsnip seed. Sure the wind blows. Wind kicks up right now. Great. That's going to do it from the windy veggie patch. Try saying that.